Hi everyone, welcome to Ma's Hook Nook, and in this episode I'll be showing you how to do the crocheted beaded bracelets. This is going to be the one that we make today. This is made with beads. They're a larger bead, but after you master making the bracelet with the larger beads, you'll be able to make the smaller ones with the seed beads. And this is my cherry blossom bracelet that I finished, and I added a clasp to kind of embellish it. And I will also show you how to read the beaded crochet patterns, because they are very different than reading a regular pattern. And you don't want to do what I did, because I took this apart about 1,000,000 times because I read the pattern completely wrong. So let's get started. Of course, the first thing you need is some of your supplies. I'll start off with the beads. These are the beads, and I've got black, and these are actually kind of a peacock color, also known as a metallic black, and both of those are the larger beads. And I'll show you the difference. I'll lay an bead and get one of these little seed beads. But this is your bead and this is your seed bead. And we're going to be using these today because trying to start off with these is really, really hard to do. Go ahead and get that put up. Of course, you need your scissors, a regular sewing needle, and then you will also need a beading needle, which is hard to pick up from the table. And this beading needle is actually just a piece of wire that has a loop in the end. And you stick your thread in that, and when you pull your bead across, it'll collapse. And those do come in different lengths. I use a 2mm crochet hook. It's not going to focus on that. The smaller the hook, the better, because it will hide your stitches. Because I started off with this hook. This one is a size 2. It don't give you the millimeters, but it also says it only costs 10 cents. These are the steel hooks from my great-grandmother. They're always good to have. Of course, you're going to need thread. This is actually crochet thread and 100% cotton, and I am going to use white. Normally you would use a contrasting color. Like you're using black beads, you would use black thread. But so you can see the stitches for the purpose of the video, I'm going to use white so you can see them. And then, of course, you'll need stitch markers. And I'm just going to show this. This is my stitch markers. They are from Madame Von Trinkets. And here is her website, madamevontrinkets.com. And I will put the link in the description below. She also does wire wrap jewelry, which is the necklace that I am wearing with the fairy and the sunflower. That is one of her pieces also. So I will put a link to her shop down below. But these stitch markers are really, really awesome. So let's get started with learning how to make the bracelet, which is this one's just a simple bracelet. You use 6 beads per row, and then we'll get into the pattern reading. So I have my 2 colors, and I have my needle, my beading needle onto my thread. You do not cut your thread. I've got the whole ball of thread here, and I just pulled a long length of yarn. You have to put all your beads on your thread first. And when it comes to seed beads, it takes about 900 seed beads to make an 8-inch bracelet. But with these E-beads, it's a little less, probably around 600 beads, because these are larger beads. We're going to start off with a row of 6. So for this pattern, I'm just going to do I'm going to alternate for 6. So there's 6 beads, and that's 1 row. And you just pull it all the way through. Now see, these beads weren't quite big enough to even squish my little hole there, but then you just repeat the pattern and just move your beads down as you go. Because the hardest part, the part that takes the longest, is stringing your beads, especially when you're doing it in an order. So I'm going to go ahead and string. I'll probably only do 100 beads just for the sake of the video. That way there's not so much to show you how to crochet them and then how to sew it close. So I'll go ahead and just do about 100 beads, and I'll come back. So I strung 102 beads to keep in with the 6 per row. Of course, you leave a 8 to 10 inch tail for sewing at the end. You grab some beads and push it up to the top here. And the first part is just chaining. So because we have 6 beads, we're going to do a chain of 6. So you just slide a bead up and do your regular chain. And slide a bead, chain a bead. Alright, 2 more. So now that you have your 6 beads, you're going to go down here to this bottom bead, and you're going to insert your hook right next to it, right here. And if you crochet really tight, like I do sometimes, it can be a little challenging to get your hook. There we go. All right. So what you want to do, you want to push this hook, or this bead, not your hook. Push this bead to the back of your hook. And you're going to leave this space here right now, because what you're going to do now is push up a bead. And that is the hardest part, is trying to keep up with your beads. And then we're going to take this bead and push it on top of that bead in between these 2 threads. And you're going to yarn over and you want that yarn over to be in front of these 2 loops, and you're going to pull it through both those loops. So basically you're going to be doing a slip stitch, and that has added that bead and created join your circle together. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go into this next, which is actually a peacock bead, and insert the hook again and push this bead towards the back. Then you're going to push up another bead, I think I pulled too much thread out because it keeps getting tangled. And you're going to lay it on top of that bead you push back in between your 2 loops. And then you're going to yarn over and then just pull through both those loops. And then just again insert it into your next bead. Push that bead to the back. That is the one very important move, is to push that bead towards the back so that your beads will lay right. And that's why it's kind of nice to use the higher quality beads that are more uniform. But right now I'm just using what I have, and I know they're willy-nilly, but... And again, you just lay this on top of that other bead in between your 2 threads. Yarn over and pull it through both loops. And then we're going to insert it into the next bead. Push that bead to the back. Sit this bead on top of that bead. And if you'll notice, for this pattern, because I only use 2 colors, you'll know you're doing right, because I insert this. This is a peacock bead. When you pull the bead up, it'll also be a peacock bead. When you work with the black bead, it'll be a black bead. That way it makes things just a little easier. Whatever color you're working with, when you're working with just 2 colors, is what it does. And then I'm just going to pull through both those loops. And then insert it into this black bead. And of course push this to the back. And as I come up, there's a black bead. Stick it on top of the other bead in between the 2. Yarn over and pull through both loops. And you'll notice, so you can already see the beads are stacking on top of each other. Yes, I know you can see the string through it, but for the purpose of this video, I did use white thread so you could see where the stitches are, because where your stitches go is really, really important. But your tube that you are creating won't start to show up until you get 4 to 5 rows of these beads on here. And then just go into the next bead. Remember, important step, push it back. Where to go? Alright, and then set it on top of that bead in between those 2 loops. Then yarn over and pull through both of those loops. It's a little hard sometimes, especially when you're using such a little teeny tiny hook. And you always want to go, your next bead, you always want to go to the top bead. And as I said, I watched a couple of videos on how to do this, but their most important step was moving that bead to the back and setting your new bead on top of that bead that you push back, and they don't tell you that. They just do it and hope you know what to do. And then you yarn over and pull through those loops. And you can kind of see they're starting to kind of squish. I like to take and kind of pull that tail a little bit tight, and it helps form the tube. And then you'll just keep doing this, and you'll notice your tube to start forming. And this, when you're doing this, if you're right-handed, you are working in a counterclockwise direction. See, what did I just do? That one. Okay, so I go into this black one. I had a peacock bead sitting here, but that wasn't the bead that's next. So that's one thing about these bracelets. It does take a little bit of time to do them because you want to make sure your beads are in place in the right section. So I'm going to work on this tube just a little bit and show you what it looks like. So I've done about 5 rows, and here is your tube starting to form. And you can see the pattern forming, and it will spiral. There's the peacock and the black, and then the peacock, and it'll twist, and it'll look really cute. And then when you look inside, all your stitches are inside. And on the outside, you have your beads. Of course, right now you are seeing the white thread, but if you were using a black thread, you wouldn't see it. But you just keep doing that. The same. Insert your hook, push your bead to the back. And as I said, there's a peacock bead there. So the next bead I push up should be a peacock colored bead, and it is. And then you just lay it on top of that new bead in between those 2 threads, yarn over, pull through, and you just keep doing that pattern until you get to the end. And then I'll show you how to sew it together. Alright, so after you get all your beads through it, you'll have a good length to make a bracelet. The first thing you want to do is, again, you want about 8 to 12 inches of sewing, and then you actually finally cut your yarn. Get rid of that. And before I close off on this, I wanted to let you know why a stitch marker is important. If you wanted to take a break from your bracelet and just pull up your loop where your hook is, take your stitch marker, preferably with a hook in it, something that clips, and then just pull it tight. Because you don't know how many times I've come back to these bracelets, pick it up, and when I'm trying to put the hook back into the hole, it just pulls out everything you've done. So that's why I say stitch marker will hold your place, and it won't let your beads come undone. And then when you're ready to come back, you just pull your stitch marker out, unclip it, and then put your hook in. And to finish off, you're just going to yarn over, pull it through, pull the yarn all the way through, and then tighten. Get your needle. This one is my regular needle, because these are the E beads. These are bigger beads. You can use a regular needle with it. But of course, with the seed beads, you would want to do this with your little beading needle. So what you want to do is you want to line up your beads, bend it into a circle. And again, this is not very many beads, so it's not going to do it too well. But you want to line your beads up in a circle. Get my thread. And you kind of want to line it up with the bead. So it'd be lined up with this one. and then you just string it through and string it through. You pull the through, and mine's not quite lined up because it's apparently not big enough, and then you just sew through the beads, and then with the rest of this you stick it down into the center and bring it out the side and cut it off. And when you do, you have a beautiful bracelet. Or if you don't want to sew it together like that, I still sewed the ends together. I just went through every single bead, made sure they were nice and tight. Then I got a cap, put the cap on it, and I used the original thread. I had 12 inches of thread, and I put the cap on my bead, and then this has the clasp, and then I just threaded it through again so it's good and tight, and made it with a clasp. And again, this one's done with the little seed beads, and this is done with the E beads. So next step, show you how to read the patterns for these. Let me get set up for that and I'll come back. So when you're looking for your crochet beaded patterns, if you go to Google and just type in your crochet beaded bracelet patterns, I always go to images, and this is what they pull up, and these are the ones you are looking for, the ones that have the graphs, and then just it looks like a bunch of color blocks with numbers. I'm going to show you the one that I used. This is the cherry blossom pattern that I used, and it is from beadpet.com under their flower section, and they have lots and lots of designs. But what you have over here in this top corner, you have your pattern name, the circumference, which was 10 beads, so it means there's 10 beads per round. They have a repeat color of colors, 237 beads, which means from top to bottom there's 237 beads. And these are your graphs. This is the one that you would use if you were using a bead loom. Of course, you would start down here and work your way up for a bead loom. This third pattern right here is the one that shows what it looks like in a crocheted beaded bracelet. But you do not follow these patterns. So don't, when you're looking at these patterns, don't start beading from here, because you'll mess up like I did. You want to start over here with these rows and rows and rows of beads. You start at the top left and you work your way down. Then you come back up and go down, and then come back up and go down. Now remember, this is just a list of 237 beads, and it takes approximately 900 seed beads to make a bracelet. So you would want to do a repeat several times of this. On my bracelet, found it. On my bracelet, I started with 50 white beads, and then I at the beginning, and then I ended with 50 white beads, so that the caps, when I put the caps on, you could see the whole flower pattern. But again, you do want to watch your numbers up here on the screen. See, for me it was easy because it was 10 beads, so you do 10 beads per round. So that's one way of doing it. Now some of these patterns, let's see if I can pull one up real quick. See if I spot one. Some of your patterns actually tell you what colors you need, how many of each color, which I really do like that. I would prefer that, but I know there's a lot of the patterns that don't. But that's some of it. Still the same format up here, the pattern, who made the pattern, the circumference of the beads. This one would have 12. They have a 75 bead repeat of colors. And then they actually put a color chart, which is white, gray, black, and white. And then again, you would just start over here on your left, and this is what you string. And this is the pattern that it creates. But when you look up the crochet beaded patterns, you'll see others. The camera doesn't want to focus. Sorry about that. But yeah, this is the one that I use. I use the Bead Pet a lot. And when you go to the main page, this is their flower section. And we'll click on a different one. Click on this one and show you. So this one, to me, this looks like a bird of paradise. But they've named it fuchsia. This one has a circumference of 15 beads around. And this one has a repeat of 460 beads. And again, you just start at the top left and go down to the bottom, then come back up, then go down and up. And it took me a while to find out where to go to read. This is their animals that they have. They have giraffe print, and then some butterflies and horses and dragonflies. And then this is the next one I am working on. It's actually got a black with pink in the top, and then it goes into pink and black into the bottom, and it's actually little flowers. And again, it's just the same, only this one is not written in English, but basically it's the same. They didn't name it. It's 7 beads in the round. They have a repeat of 623 beads, and then just start at the top and go down. Now, this bracelet is going to be my daughter's, and I'm actually going to do white and a lavender. And instead of staring at the computer screen trying to read all this, this is what I did. I went through and wrote down, starting at the top left, and just went down, and then the lines help me keep the line. If I don't have a straight line to write next to, as you can see, I just kind of like go this way for some reason. But I'm going to start, but instead of the black, I'm going to do white. And then, of course, P can be for purple too, which hers beads are a lavender. And then every time I go do a row, I just take a highlighter and highlight each one that I've done. That way I don't repeat it and mess up. And for the repeats, what I do is, well, I guess it'd help if I did this right. Here we go. This is my cherry blossom pattern. I wrote it out too because I kept messing up on the computer screen. I was trying to follow it on the computer and I couldn't do it, so I wrote it down. Each repeat was a different color. I have 3 colors of highlighter. I did yellow, blue, and green. So one round from here to here was yellow, one was blue from here to the end, and one was green from here to here. And for me, it was just easier, and that way I could actually mark it off because, well, trying to print these off first off, especially with these graphs, this is a lot of ink. My printer would scream at me. It screams at me when I'm printing off eBay labels when I sell something. And it's a brand new printer, so I just find it easier to write it down and mark it off as I go. But again, when you read these patterns, they have the graph for the bead loom. This one is for if you're hand beading it without a loom. And this is for the crochet beaded bracelets or the tubular crochet. And again, you start at the top, work down your first row, then go to your next row, start at the top, work down, and you just do that until you get down to the bottom. And again, depending on how many repeats there are, as to how many times you do it. Like this one has 623 beads. You need about 900 beads, so you would do this one time and then repeat almost the whole pattern till you get 900 beads for it. And that is for an 8-inch bracelet. You can make them smaller, like for this one, because I'm making it for my daughter and she's 9. I will only be doing 1 repeat. And for hers, she wants the clasp. She wants the clasp like I did on the cherry blossom, because she's afraid of stretching out the bracelets. Like this one. She's afraid of stretching it out, even though the way, because it is crochet, crochet has a little bit of stretch because of the stitches. So you can stretch it, which this bracelet's actually big on me, so I can get it on and off. I have to have a 7-inch bracelet instead of 8. Yes, I've, in order to get bands, like this is my Fitbit, this band that's got a few loops left in it, not many, but I normally have to go to the children's section to get watches and stuff because I've got little tiny wrists. But yeah, these do have a good bit of give. But that is how you read these patterns. And I don't have the other one pulled up anymore. Oh well. But I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you've learned from it, because I have taken what I learned from so many different sources and put it into one video, because no one on here tells you how to read these patterns properly. Because when I did it, I just went down here to the bottom and I started stringing beads like I was doing on a bead loom, which I've done before. I do loom work. And then I started doing this. I just started crocheting the beads together and the pattern wasn't coming out. And that's when I discovered you're actually supposed to start here at the top and work your way down. And here, yeah. So hopefully this video helps someone else. If you have any questions, you can leave a comment below, or you can contact me on Facebook at Ma's Hook Nook. I've got the email in the description also. I'm also on Instagram. And you can get in touch with me through my website at mastreasures.com. I'll have all the links in the description below. Until next time, happy hooking!